Alrighty, and welcome. Just a bit of a quick update because I don't see anyone out there putting this information up. Just wanted to have a look at the new update for the Sony consoles. Now this is a Pro, and I do believe there has been a change to the way the upscaler works on the Pro. Anyone familiar with these stairs in Hogwarts? Give me a moment. Anyone familiar with these stairs knows that if you're in the if you're in, I think it's the high quality mode, you can get about 1800 lines of resolution out of the game. Now, to be fair, this monitor is only a 1440 monitor, but I'm not in the 1800 lines mode. I think I'm in the performance balance mode. You can see there's a little bit of jaggies on that top staircase. Now, I am actually a PC gamer. I try to generally do my gaming on the PC. I am recording this at a much higher resolution than the screen has, so we should be capturing the little bit of artifacting or the stepping, pun intended, on the stairs. As you can see, that top stairwell there shows it. Now, it's a great torture test because, as you can see, these stairs are actually quite curved. A lot of things in this game are, and they can really push being able to squeeze the jaggies out. So I've got a couple little test zones. Anyway, the new patch has come out, and Skyrim being a traditional 4K game, we expect the pin sharp graphics. So I'm going to keep this recording down as short as I possibly can, mostly because I am recording it at such a high bit depth and resolution. I didn't opt for a fast frame rate. The time it would take for me to upload the video would just be too silly for words. But I just thought I'd put a bit of video up because I was doing a test before I took the update last night and looking specifically in a couple of games and looking at specific jaggies. And whilst I don't think Skyrim's going to show anything, although there's some interesting texture flickering off in the distance there, but that's probably more to do with a mod that I'm running. All right, but one of the things I like to do, certainly versus the Switch 2, which with each update, its upscaler gets a bit of work done, is to come and look at the windmill blade here, because again, it's a bit of a torture test. If you come down here and look up at it, but we expect a game like this, which will be running, I don't know if I can reach around. I've got a setting menu on the screen. It'll actually bring up and it'll tell me that this is running at 4K. I know that's a fact, so that's that test done. But this was the one that revealed to me last night that I was looking at in the performance mode, the jaggies on a high contrast edge, a stairwell, again, that's curved, just a bit like Hogwarts does. And I use it as a torture test. It's a great little, what's the resolution look like here? And I periodically just come in and have a look after an update and see what sort of things change. But it is true that the update doesn't read like anything special. They just say, generally they say stability fixes, but occasionally they say performance and stability fixes. And I've noticed over the last year or since the Pros came out, we see the word performance improvements touted a lot more frequently in updates than we have in the past. And it's a very understated comment, right? I do think they're under-promising and generally over-delivering with what is going on. But just if we have a look, so you can see the stairs. Again, they've got diagonal lines. And my point of reference last night was I was looking just here, and you can see that there is a bit of noise, like a dot crawl, if you will. But it's the contrasting nature of that. Last night there was physical, visible pixels that were distinct in a way that now it almost looks like either there's one of two things that can happen. They've improved the algorithm for the upscaler, or they've potentially boosted the CPU at some level such that the resolution has actually gone up in the raw data. Could be one, could be the other, could be a little from column A, a little from column B. What I do see, though, is it is improved. Now, I am the kind of person who looks, I might just be observation bias. I'm looking for it. Come over to fidelity mode. Great game because it does it instantly. Now, a little bit janky for me. This particular OLED screen doesn't do a very good job at 30 frames per second game data. It's the first OLED I've had that does that. And I did have a vertical alignment, a VA LCD panel, that was probably the most expensive in its price bracket. I was a bit disappointed that its 30 frames a second mode felt horrible, right? So it isn't necessarily that 30 frame a second gaming can be horrible. I'm using wired input controllers because that lowers the latency. But 30 frames a second on a monitor that can actually do 30 frames a second properly feels liquid. And I say this as I've got a friend who retails in one of the best hi-fi shops in the state, and he's for a decade plus sold the best televisions to everyone and has multiple of them in his own house and knows how to configure to get the best out of them. And he found that 30 frame a second gaming was horrible. And then I dragged him over to play the same game on the same hardware on a Panasonic TV, OLED, back when they made them. They've left the market because they don't want to be price competitive with junk. It's just you're not going to win that war. Consumers often don't understand what they're buying. But the truth was that a TV built to do it rendered 30 frames a second gaming really well. And he was absolutely surprised. He came over and was like, it's a night and day difference. It's totally playable on my system. It felt like 60 frames a second gaming on systems, on other systems. So a little bit disappointingly, when I first cracked this monitor out of the box, I found that its 30 frames a second mode was, and then I changed like 2 settings of the menus, and all of a sudden its 30 frame a second mode was really good. But it still is, yeah, you feel it to the point where now I wouldn't play this game at 30 frames a second. I would certainly now want to play it in performance mode. So that loads my biases to wanting to have the performance mode work better. But you can see the dot crawl on the point that I'm indicating there, just along there. And it was high contrast last night. It was physically the pixels were darker, so it's almost like it's doing a better job of blending or smearing the information that's beside it. And in performance, it looks amazing. Like it is noticeably vastly better. Now, the motion rate on this TV believes it's this monitor, I should say, is a clear motion rate of 15,000. It's up there at the fairly high level. It is only a 2560 by 1440 panel, so it's probably not the best reference screen for tripping up or showing these things. But I am recording at a much higher resolution. We should be able to capture enough data here to potentially show it up. Obviously, I didn't take any recorded footage last night so to be able to compare and contrast. But I am familiar with looking at these settings, and you can see how quickly it gets on top of any jaggies on any of the stairs here. And it really does feel like they've just improved the upscaler. But as I say, it could be one or two things. It could be that maybe they've unlocked the CPU to run a bit higher, or maybe the GPU is now able to get on top of the average resolution, which is usually dependent on available processing power. Like on a lot of games, it will be variable. But there is the off-screen resolution, and there's the on-screen, which is the upscaled data. And whatever has happened here, the edges are improved. So look, whilst the patch doesn't talk itself up, my observations of it, I would say that there is some graphics improvements that have come along with it. I can only confirm on the Pro system it might just be it's related to the PSSR, the spectral super resolution. But whilst we do understand that the big updates are going to come next year, it would appear that it is a constantly evolving and improving tech. And the reason why this game is a good one for it is that this game stopped getting patches a long time ago. So it is entirely the console, the system level improvements that have led to this. Anyway, a shout out to the equipment today which led to this. It was a little GoPro, being able to put an old phone on it, and a Lenovo Legion case, because the Legion Go handheld after an update lost a lot of performance. It's the Legion Go 1, Lenovo, a brand not to be trusted, but it turns out the case that it comes in is still practical to me, and so it was a little part of my tripod today to pop things up. So, look, do I think Sony have done well with this update? Yes. Am I a pro Sony fanboy? Not really. As I say, I'm a PC gamer, but not really anything happening in that camp that makes me happy to be in the PC camp. So again, observation bias is I'm probably desperate for every little improvement that the console brings. I do think the PS5 Pro is superlative hardware. I think it is incredible value for money. And in terms of what you would need to buy to get an equivalent gaming PC, is not necessarily even what matters. It is the experience as a whole is just fantastic. As a PC technician of decades, to be able to just have some equipment I can turn on reliably, come back to my save game reliably, and always have a very smooth experience, I think it's exceptional value for money. And that isn't factoring the hardware that comes in the box. Anyway, just a shout out if you're looking to find value in your recent hardware purchases and are looking forward to further updates coming along to your software. This was one of the games that suffered the worst on release. It was shadows in the hair, all sorts of things. The game was actually unplayable when the PS5 dropped, the Pro dropped. And with constant updates, again, the developers of the software themselves have given up on it. But the actual PlayStation improvements are system-wide, and I am seeing definitely improvements coming with each. Well, they're constant. The big ones, of course, being next year, and Sony are reaching out to get developers to optimize for the low-powered mode, which suggests that the PS6 handheld is out of the box going to have native support without games needing patches. So it looks like Sony's got a great trajectory going forward. They know what they're doing. They're getting the developers to work well with the tools that are available. And as the hardcore techs on the market knows, that there's been more dev kit tools for the PlayStation Spectral, the super resolution, than there are for FSR3 or FSR4. So it is an easy ecosystem to program for. It is certainly auto-optimizing from the point of view of us gamers. We don't have to do anything, and the improvements just keep coming. All right, well wishes with you. You have a great day.